Thanks for logging on to Storytelling with Eth-No-Tec. We'll be streaming soon, so hang in there. We'll be with you shortly. This upcoming stream is free, and we welcome any donations you'd like to contribute to Eth-No-Tec, a nonprofit arts organization. For your support helps us reach tens of thousands of families across the country and beyond, both on the stage and online streaming. While you're waiting for the stream to start, enjoy seeing the many faces and places of Eth-No-Tec and the communities we serve. Your good word helps us reach more people with storytelling that touches hearts and opens minds. We'll be with you shortly. Join Eth-No-Tec in staying safe, sanitize, and put your mask to the task. Pass along this message and pass along this link. Please subscribe to Eth-No-Tec's YouTube channel, Storytelling with Eth-No-Tec. We'll be streaming very soon.
Hi everyone. Can you hear me all right? Give me a thumbs up if you
Yeah,
can hear me.
can hear you great.
All right. Hello. Good evening. My name is Tashi, and I am one of the co-managing directors here at Eth-No-Tec, and feeling really honored to be able to host this conversation while Robert and Nancy are in Indonesia. They're with us virtually. Thank you for your trust. And yeah, thank you everyone so much for taking the time to join us for this really important exploration, reflection, conversation, to be present to what is going on in Gaza, also known as Gaza, in Israel right now. I know that so many of us are feeling deeply impacted and just moving through a lot of grief around what we're seeing unfold in that part of the world. And also knowing that here in the USA, our country and our government is very implicated in what's going on. And so, I just want to acknowledge that I recognize that many of us probably have differing perspectives and understandings of this violence that's happening right now. And, we're going to hear from a few different perspectives today and just make room for that range of perspective and then open it up for conversation. And I'll be sharing some sort of guiding agreements when we get to that point of discussion, just so that we can ensure that, you know, everyone's feeling safe and respected as much as possible in this space while we're engaging in a topic that can bring up a lot for folks. You know, some background about myself. I'm an artist and a healer. I'm of Japanese and Eastern European Jewish descent, and yeah, and I'm a body worker and energy worker. So with that in mind, I just wanted to start us off with a bit of grounding, just ever so briefly. I just want to invite everyone to feel your feet on the ground. If your feet are on the ground, I invite you to close your eyes or bring your gaze down if that's comfortable for you. Just become aware of the energy moving through your body. And just want to invite us to take some breaths together. Breathing into the belly and out through the mouth. In through the nose, filling up the belly, and out through the mouth. One more breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. Just giving thanks to be able to breathe, to be alive in our bodies at this moment, to be able to be present for this conversation and just be as present as we can in this moment. And I want to thank all the ancestors for everything that they have done for us to be here, and all who have come before us, all who have worked for justice and for liberation, so that we who are here now could experience any of the safety that we do. With that being said, I'm going to start us off with a story from Robert.
What I'm going to share with you is a story from India, and it's called The Black Hound. High in the lofty kingdom of the gods, Chakra, the king of gods, garbed in gold and silk, sat in his throne, stroking a small black pet, a puppy, and then peered to the clouds to gaze upon the world of men. What's this I see? What's this I hear? Cries of anger and hatred, shouts of war, and worse, the cries of many more people suffering from war. And Chakra knew there was a great task before him, and so with a wave of his hand, the dog vanished, to reappear later. So did his garbs of gold and silk, turning into cotton rags. And then down, down, down to the clouds he descended to walk on the world of men. Now at this moment it was the beginning of a new day. The empire, the great domain of the grand civilization. It stretched from east to west as if to declare civilization. Now, up in the gate tower, the guard was waking at the break of dawn. Hey, who goes there? And he saw a man dressed in rags, holding that small black puppy. What do you want? The man at first said nothing. I said, what do you want? My dog is hungry. Feed my dog. Ha! Hungry? Hey, we don't feed scum like you or your dogs. Be gone! Oh, yes, you do feed the dog. And with a magical wave, that man flew up over the wall and landed in the watchtower. As the gatekeeper, what do you want? What do you want? I said, my dog is hungry. Feed my dog.
Well, thank God, lifted his sword, but when he caught the gaze of that dog, the man began to tremble. What kind of dog is that? As he stared into the red embers of the eyes of the dog. What kind of dog is that? A demon dog? It's a hungry dog. Feed my dog. And the man trembled. Sentries, guards, come! And in came the soldiers, aiming their arrows and their swords. What do you want? I said, feed my dog. Feed my dog. And when the soldiers looked at that dog, indeed they saw the same thing. They began to sweat, beads of fear trickling down their chins as the dog smelled that fear. And then suddenly it began to grow bigger and larger. And now it stood the size of a large black hound. The men threw down their weapons in a small pile, and they threw out their rations, all the food they had. And that black hound walked up to that food and, in one gulp, devoured everything, and then leaped down into the plaza, followed by his master, as the man in rags said, feed my dog. The soldiers ran about, grabbing people from the marketplace, grabbing out their loaves of bread, their fruit, their vegetables, and threw it in a pile before this dog, and that black hound walked up to it and devoured it, and then began to grow larger and bigger, and now it's the size of a large bull. His hairs bristled on his back, his nostrils snorted and flared, his eyes glowed like red molten metal. Feed my dog! And a panic broke out in the marketplace. People went to the marketplace and grabbed all the baskets of fruit and vegetables and all the food they could find. They went to the butchers, hauled out all the meat, all the carcasses of bone and sinew and flesh. They went to the fishermen and they hauled out all their baskets of fish and a huge pile of meat and vegetables. The dog walked up to that pile, lowered its jaws, and devoured all the food. Then the dog began to devour the granaries and the mills and all of the rice and the grains of wheat, every bit of food, even down to the bakeries, all the samosas and the chapati breads, gone as the dog began to grow bigger and larger and bigger, and now it stood the size of a building. Feed my dog, repeated the man in rags. Now the emperor was alerted. Wait, we have no more food. You've eaten all the food we have. Then feed my dog your things. Things? What do you mean things? You're an empire. You have more things than most people in this world. Feed my dog your things. And then when that dog let out a growl, all of the people trembled and they ran back to their homes. They grabbed all their furniture, all their clothes, the kids' toys, all their rugs, all their things, and they shoved it into a pile in the middle of the plaza of the Empire's plaza, and had a huge pile of things, all the possessions that the people had. And that dog walked up to that pile of things and devoured it. Gone. He's still hungry. Feed my dog! The people went to the schools and the libraries. They emptied all the universities, all the written word. They went to the holy places and emptied out all the schools of knowledge and wisdom and spiritual understanding. And they piled up all that written word that had amassed over the centuries. And the dog devoured all that. And still the dog was hungry. Feed my dog! And then they'd watch, and all the bankers and the lenders came out, and they dumped out all their riches, their coffers of gold and silver and all the wealth they had. Even the rich let go of their diamonds and their rubies and all their emeralds, a mountain of things, a huge mountain of opulence. And the people walked out and saw this mountain of riches. They had never seen such riches like that. And still that dog devoured the wealth of the empire. Now the people cried, what do we do? The emperor stepped forward and said, well then, we'll call the military. Yes, the military. We'll solve everything. Well, in they came, the military, all the generals and the lieutenants and all the sergeants, marching in their battalions and their units and their squadrons, a huge battalion, a huge army, all of them marching in as a huge wave of legions with spears and knives and shields and catapult and arrow launchers and flame launchers, all kinds of weapons as they marched and rolled in. And then when they saw that dog, it now towered into the clouds, and those red eyes snorting, they trembled. Trickles of fear dripped down to their chin, and the dog He inhaled that fear and grew larger and larger and stronger and bigger. And the men just dumped all their weapons, their swords, their arrows, their shields, and they rolled up their catapults and all their arrow launchers, and the dog saw that pile of weaponry and scooped it up and crunched it and cracked, devoured all the weapons. Gone. He's still hungry. Feed my dog. Now the people came out. They saw this monstrous black hound, a spectacle. They poured out from every neighborhood, every marketplace, every neighborhood. They poured out until the entire population was there in the plaza, looking at this monstrous dog who was surveying the vacant buildings. And then that dog leaped into the sky and landed and began devouring all the structures, the schools, the walls, every bit of building it could find. And when it was done, all that was left were the people, as the dog marched forward and began to slowly open its jaws. Wait, cried the emperor. Wait. No. Why do you do this to us? What have we ever done? And the man in rags paused. This destruction, devouring, annihilation. You've been doing this all along. How do you think you became an empire? And the people began to cower, waiting as that jaw got larger and larger, as they stared up into what looked like a caldron from hell. As the people waited, and then suddenly, no, don't eat us! Eat the rich! No, don't eat us. No, eat those poor. No, eat the ones that live over there. No, in that name. No, eat those. They don't speak our language. They don't pray like us. No, eat them, take them, each one accusing the other of being more deserving of death. And when that jaw was open to its fullest capacity, they stared into that cavern of death, and they realized there was room for everyone. And the people waited, and then the man in rags stepped forward, waved his hand. Black hound vanished. And that man in rags was now garbed in gold and silver as he stepped forward. Feed the hungry. Care for the sick. Tend to those who have less than you. Cease your violent ways. All those wars, all that killing, that destruction against living life on this planet. Do these things. The black hound will rest. But ignore this task, and that black hound will descend upon your world and devour everything, everyone you have in your heart. And it devours even your very soul, your family, and the soul of your nation. Then Chakra ascended into the sky, and the people stepped forward, looked about, and then hung their head in a silent, shameful pause until they heard a sound. Faint at first. It was the cry of a single hungry child. And then they heard another. And then a moan from the elders. And then a groan from someone who was sick. And the people looked at each other and realized that a great task lay before them. And high in the lofty kingdom of the gods, Chakra sat on his throne, now garbed in gold and silk, peering through the clouds, and smiled, and leaned over and stroked his small black pet. It curled up like a dog by the fire.
Thank you, Robert, for that story. I think it applies in really deep ways to what we're witnessing happen right now, and how empire ends up devouring the soul and the spirit of those who are forcing that power, that domination onto others, and how it ends with the people reflecting on the work that's ahead of them to undo that damage. I think that that's where we are now as a nation, in my opinion. And without going too much more into talking myself, I'm going to share a video that I compiled over the last couple of weeks that's synthesizing a lot of the voices that I've been really respecting and looking to understand the violence and the genocide that's been happening in Gaza, perpetuated by the Israeli government. And, you know, these are, again, people who I deeply respect, who have been working for justice and liberation in this region for a long time. And so they can do a much better job than I can of helping us and helping me understand the wider context of what's going on. So I'm going to share this now.
Should I tell you that Gaza was once a city district of historic Palestine that sits on the eastern coast of the Mediterranean Sea? That its harbor and fertile land has made it a focal point of trade and empire for centuries? That prior to 1948, the Gaza district contained almost 90 towns and villages. It was 38 times larger than the current 140 square mile strip, making it the largest district in mandatory Palestine until Zionist militias destroyed a majority of these towns.
For the last 80 years, and this is simply historical fact, has been mass killings. Tens of thousands of Palestinians have been killed. Thousands of children have been killed. This is going back to 1947, 48. And people have been expelled from their land. They've been occupied.
Should I tell you that upon Israel's establishment, a severely truncated Gaza absorbed nearly 25% of Palestinian refugees exiled from their former homes, increasing its population from 80,000 to 280,000, that number has grown to 2.2 million today, who are predominantly refugees and children.
Yes, there are 220 or so Israeli hostages, for which one can only express regret and pray for their safety. Thousands of Palestinians are held hostage in Israeli jails and tortured, professionally tortured.
In this context, I can tell you that Israel imposed a land siege and a naval blockade, hermetically sealing this coastal enclave, placing it on a subsistence diet just above starvation, relegating it to conditions of bare life, and then systematically pummeling it with advanced weapons technologies in a bid to take the land without the people.
And so history did not begin on October the 7th.
October 7th makes no sense at all unless you understand what has been happening in Gaza for the past 16 years and what has been happening in the West Bank and Gaza for the past 56 years. and what has been happening in all of historic Palestine for the past 75 years. If you don't understand that, you'll have no ability to understand what's happening today. Hamas is, first of all, founded by two individuals, okay? Rantisi and Yassin. Yassin was a refugee from the 1948 war. When he was 12 years old, his family was expelled from their homes in Israel proper, wound up in Gaza. Rantisi was 8 years old at the time that Israel entered the Gaza Strip in 1956 and massacred hundreds of Palestinians in Gaza and Khan Yunis in November 1956. He bore witness to that. Lo and behold, a few decades later, both of them found Hamas. And so I think just even as we talk about how this organization came into existence in the first place, it was, I think, as a result of Israeli violence in 1948 and Israeli violence in 1956. So this idea that the way you solve for violent resistance is by committing even more violence and an even more unimaginable scale, I think, is mistaken.
Bisan from Gaza, still alive, and this is a quick update about what is going on now. Hey everyone, it's Bisan from Gaza. We're still alive. It's about 12 p.m. and I'm at Shifa Hospital. Bisan from Gaza. I'm still alive. Today is the day 30 of the war in Gaza, and this might be the last update that I can give to you. I'm not sure I will survive until tomorrow in these conditions. Bisan from Gaza. I'm still alive, and it's the day 43 for the war in Gaza. And today, 600 people were killed in Gaza under bombing. It's Bissam from Gaza, and these are the updates. Tonight, the Indonesian hospital, the central hospital and the only working hospital in the north area of Gaza Strip, was bombed. And by the way, it was not evacuated. No one told the hospital, the doctors, or the patients that it will be bombed. They were killed. They were killed inside the hospital. We are evacuating. We're leaving our houses. They told us from Riman neighborhood in the center of Gaza, in the middle of Gaza, the center that they said yesterday it's safe, and they told people to evacuate to this place. We are now evacuating. All the neighborhood is in Shifa hospital and other safe places, but there is no safe places in Gaza.
I don't know how anybody who benefits, who stands on the shoulders of our ancestors' struggle against Jim Crow, against segregation, could see what is happening right now, could see the bombs being dropped, 9,000 people dead, an ungodly number of them children, in service of Jim Crow and segregation, which we have exported, and be okay with that. I don't understand it. So yes, I have my fears. I do. I'm afraid right now, sitting here talking to you. But I have to measure my fear against the misery that I saw. I have to measure my fear against the promises that I made to the Palestinians who welcomed me into their homes and gave me the facts, to the Israeli Jews who welcomed me into their homes and gave me the facts, to the Holocaust survivors who welcomed me into their homes and gave me the facts. I have to measure it against my own ancestors, against Frederick Douglass, against Ida B. Wells, who certainly faced off against things that were much, much more perilous than going someplace, coming back and telling people what you saw. This is the minimum. It's scary, but it's also the minimum. And the fact that people are trying to suppress speech is not an excuse for you not to speak. It's always been this way for Black writers and journalists. This is our tradition, And so I feel, as I do feel the fear, I also feel that I am in good company because I'm in the company of my ancestors.
We are human beings, just like anyone else. My city, my grandmother, like all Palestinians, just wants to live her life with freedom and human dignity we all deserve. Speaking up to save lives, Mr. Chair, no matter faith, no matter ethnicity, should not be controversial in this chamber. The cries of the Palestinian and Israeli children sound no different to me. Why? What I don't understand is why the cries of Palestinians sound different to you all. We cannot lose our shared humanity, Mr. Chair.
What will you say? What will we say? ask us what we did when a genocide was carried out in our name.
We are rabbis for ceasefire. You know, there's been an effort over the past number of years to conflate critique of Israel with anti-Semitism. This is a deliberate strategy by those who seek to shield Israel from accountability. The truth is, Judaism is a beautiful, evolving religious civilization that has been part of the world for thousands of years. Zionism and the Jewish state has a far shorter history. Zionism is just over 125 years old, and the state just 75 years.
They're gonna ask us. They're gonna ask us. Trust me, they're gonna ask us. And I want to really know, what are we gonna say? What are we gonna say? Are we gonna say we did everything we could? Are we gonna do everything we can? Are we gonna do everything we can to say not in our names? Not in our names. Not in our names. Not in our names.
States must be held accountable when they violate human rights.
So you have, right, women who are at the point where they might be discharged from a hospital as soon as 3 hours after giving birth, and being sent home with a child with no resources and no electricity and no ability to care for that baby, right? When we saw the mass cutting of power in Gaza, what people call Gaza, you saw almost 40 babies that were killed on incubators, right? And these are really intense things, and they're really bleak things to talk about, and also they're really important things to talk about.
I spent 7 years covering Gaza, most of them for the New York Times. I've spent weeks of my life in Gaza. And although I covered Operation Cast Lead, Protective Edge, what we're seeing in Gaza has reached levels of violence and slaughter that perhaps is the worst in Palestinian history, and I include the Nakba. What we're watching is a campaign of unmitigated genocide, the indiscriminate slaughter of civilians, 160 children a day. I was in the war in Sarajevo. We were hit with 300 to 400 shells a day, 4 to 5 dead a day, 24 wounded a day. I don't want to minimize that siege. I still have nightmares from it, but that does not begin to compare with what is happening in Gaza. It is incumbent upon all of us who care about the rights and the safety of the Palestinian people to do everything within our power to stop this campaign of wholesale killing on the part of the Israeli war machine, backed, of course, by the United States. It is time for all of us to rise up on behalf of the Palestinian people, and to not rise up is to be complicit.
Your silence is so loud. A rocket launching in the sky, your silence a flag. Your flag a body bag. An ambulance wailing through a crowded street of debris, an emergency room with no electricity. Your silence is savage. Your silence haunts the dead. If ever we survive the war of your silence, we may never be able to hear again. And still we can see through your silence. Your silence is a slow death, gnawing from the inside, piece by piece.
Helpless, helpless, 10,000, 10,000. I can hardly count my own feelings at night. These days I'm sleeping with the light on.
Sam from Gaza was still alive. And these are the updates you've probably heard about a truce to be announced this evening or tomorrow. You need to know these things about this truce. First, it's temporary. It's just for 4 to 6 days, while we need a ceasefire, a completely and immediately ceasefire. We need to go back to our homes. 1.7 million people are internally displaced and need to go back to their homes.
Enough, enough, enough. When will enough be enough, enough? When will enough be enough, enough?
Thank you, everyone. I'm just taking a moment to breathe myself because it's a lot to take in. And I just want to encourage everyone to take care of themselves while we're here. Again, if you do need to step out at any time, if you need to drink some water, I encourage that. We are going to continue and also close out the sharing portion of today's Swent with the wonderful Tureeda Mikell. Tureeda Mikell, story medicine woman, author, activist for holism, called a word magician, is an award-winning poet, published nationally and internationally, Qigong healer, workshop leader, storyteller, lyricist, performance artist, and founder of the Tree of Life Foundation, HLP, is an advocate for youth and adults. Tureeda has published over 70 student anthologies with California poets in the schools. She has performed in many schools, universities, and museums, such as the De Young Museum and the Museum of the African Diaspora. She was an Eth-Noh-Tec Nuwa delegate to a storytelling village in China as part of a cultural exchange. And her full-length collection, Synchronicity, The Oracle of Sun Medicine, was released in 2020 and nominated for the California Book Award. Today, she will be sharing a poem from her forthcoming collection, The Body, Oracle of Memory, which will be published by Black Lawrence Press in February of 2024. So everyone, please welcome Tureeda to the virtual stage.
Oh, greetings.
Just to remind you to turn your camera on if you can.
Oh, my camera. Okay, now. There.
There she is.
Okay. Her sermon on the Mount. God is good. God, he's good. All the time, all the time, all the time. God, he's good. He watches over us, takes care of us. Watch them take my baby, rape my baby, hang my baby, shoot my baby, lynch, butcher, bomb, burn my baby, drown my baby, castrate my baby, lobotomize my baby, jail my baby, traffic my baby, imprison my baby, take land, culture, history, and home away from us and our babies, because God is good. He works in mysterious ways. Oh, yes, he does. His ways are mysterious. God, he's good, 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 so good, all the time, all the time, all the time. God, he's good all the damn time, watching them commit genocide on our babies, kidnapping our babies, drugging our babies, making them prey on our babies, prostitute our babies, starving our babies, sending our babies to war, miseducating our babies, turning them into killers, our babies shooting our babies, offering them up as sacrifices for our sins, sending them to a better place because we're born broken, don't you know? God, he's good, good, he's good, good, all the time, all the time, all the time. My country, 'tis of the sweet land of one nation under God, with liberty and just. He's good, he's good, he's so good, he's good. Shh. Quiet, child. That God switched habitats for humanity off long ago. He demands insanity, runs his worship. cut stars from sky, gave Ankh a hysterectomy. Now a cross we bear. Death commands we rely on his word. A will be done kills her son, because this God is not into woman, earth, or children from womb waters, nor is he into sun, moon, reason to season seeds cooked just right. Her mathematics unholy. Her knowledge is sin in this garden. Only he can be righteous. Are you listening, child? Your prayer ends with amen. A group of men casting monotheistic charms, absolving one another from fault without end. It's coming to a close, but know this, child. Dog is man's best friend, not woman. Can you see? The anadrome for dog is God. Whether coming or going, this spell tells you to sit, heal, fetch, stay down, bitch. Wonder not why you are treated worse than, or why you cannot think beyond his dependency. Ask what is blasphemy, sacrilege, heresy. What does that look like? How does it behave? What is its purpose? Who pronounced its judgment? What epistemic rims support the gate of this castle? What kind of membrane allows certain things in and certain things out for the good of itself? Who will it serve? God? Is he good? Is he good? Is he good all the time? Thank you. It's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tureeda. Thank you for sharing that powerful, honest, direct, heartful poem with us.
Nancy heard it and felt it should be repeated. And so, it's for all of us. And the people that you had, I know Aja Mene, and I have a photo just in engaging with Gabor Mate, Dr. Gabor Mate. Mm-hmm. Yes. We're all in this together. We witnessed what happened in South Africa. It's no different than what's taking place in Palestine. The siege took place the same year in 1948 in South Africa as well as Palestine. So we're going through things. I'm constantly thinking about what to do next, but I know we have questions or something that people can.
Yeah, it's really powerful segue into our discussion. So I want to invite folks, if anyone wants to bring their face forward, who's has their camera turned off, would love to see more folks if you're comfortable, no pressure, so that we can have a discussion together. I want to share some community agreements that feel important to me. I'm going to put them in the chat as well as read them. So what I have here is we're going to be having this discussion based on mutual respect. That means we're going to allow each person their time to speak, allowing room for difference of perspective. That also doesn't mean that we can't disagree. So disagreement and conflict can be very generative when held in a respectful way. I want to encourage us all to speak from the I. We are all entitled to our own perspective. We're not here to force our perspective on anyone, but to share from our own experience and understanding. I would like us to center the heart over the mind and center in our shared humanity and our compassion for ourselves and others. There will be no hateful speech tolerated in this space, including Islamophobic, anti-Semitic, anti-Black speech, among other kinds of hateful speech. There's not tolerance for that here. And I would like us all to also hold awareness of our privileges that may obscure us from being aware of the realities of others who are being targeted by state violence, and humbling ourselves around what we may not know because of our experiences, and centering the lived knowledge of Black, Indigenous, people of color who are here in this space, who may speak their experiences. And then also just encouraging us to share the mic, so being aware of how much space we're taking up and leaving room for others to participate. So if that sounds good to everyone, I have a few guiding questions. I will also be putting those in the chat. So my first question is, how is witnessing what is happening in Gaza and in Israel impacting you? What has been surfacing for you since October 7th? Another question is, how do you view your personal responsibility to this issue? How do you see yourself as being connected to what is happening in the region, knowing that we're all connected? And then lastly, what actions have you been witnessing or participating in that have been inspiring you or moving you? So anyone is welcome to jump in and share. Would love to hear from folks. Also welcome questions for any of the artists who have shared their work in this session, or reflections on any of the pieces, Tureeda's poem, Robert's story, or the video that I created.
So perhaps you should say something about your process regarding the images and the people you chose to do the video.
Yeah. I think being a mixed race person, having an Asian mother and a white father, I was kind of trained in a way to try to move, like to understand multiple perspectives. And I think I have been moving through a political and social and spiritual awakening over the last 10 years, and largely in a lot of ways this year, and then also being amplified since October 7th, to need to raise my voice more and more clearly and directly, as you do so powerfully, Tureeda, to be able to name injustice, to be able to name empire and colonialism, and just being aware of how much pushback there is from individuals, but largely from the state. I mean, the state that then influences and programs individuals to sort of act on its own behalf. I saw that there was a bill that was passed today or yesterday through Congress to equate anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism as, yeah. So basically criticizing the state of Israel is now officially legally equated by the US government as anti-Semitic hate speech. Essentially protecting the state of Israel from criticism, much needed and extremely justified criticism. And so I feel like myself and a lot of us internalize that silencing because we are conditioned to center the comfort of people that are benefiting from these systems. For example, I was raised to center the comfort of my white father.
Oh, of course.
And so that's something that I'm moving through in working on vocalizing my truth more and more. And also at the same time, you know, in creating a video like the one I created today, I also know that people shut down when they feel attacked and when they feel defensive. And so my goal with this video is to bring people in, you know, bring people who feel attacked by people saying from the river to the sea, you know, who feel like that's a call for genocide against Jewish people, to say, no, like that's not what that means. Our liberation is interconnected, and many white, you know, European Jewish people have been taught to equate our identity and our selfhood with the state of Israel, and that's strategic on behalf of the empire. And so I really wanted to invite people in to our shared humanity, and that's why I included all of those different voices. You know, I wanted to center Palestinian voices, but I also wanted to include all of those Jewish voices so that people know that there's a space for them in this movement, and that we all are connected through our shared humanity when we advocate for the basic human rights and well-being and thriving and access to our ancestral lands and our cultures, you know, of all people across the earth. So thank you for asking.
Yeah.
Robin, I would love to hear from you.
Thank you. This has been powerful, and it's the first thing like this I could let myself see, you know, to identify myself. I'm Jewish, Ashkenazic Jewish. I spent a lot of my life, I grew up comfortably Jewish, but I spent a lot of my life after I left home hiding my being my background. I ran into more anti-Semitism than I thought existed on the left, on the right, among people I worked with. And that's just a struggle I've had to go through. And I feel so pissed, to be honest. Just when I'm starting to feel comfortable I even thought about getting a Jewish star necklace. I haven't had one since I was 12. You know, this thing went and happened. I think the empire, I mean, I'm horrified. I'm angry. You know, I'm glad my dad's not alive, or my mom, you know, because we'd be fighting really bad. You know, for many people, Israel was the answer. And, you know, but it was done so poorly. And it was kind of like how all those states on the Arabian Peninsula were created. You know, people just took lines and saw who was rich or who would work with the West. I'm just so angry and frightened. I do not talk about this with anybody. I've seen my family. We've had deaths in the family. I will not talk. And I used to be the most outspoken. I just won't talk about it because I don't want to see how the family will divide my friend, you know, or my friends. And I mean, I think just one more thing, it's really scary for me. I have not experienced the kind of virulent anti-Semitism my parents and grandparents and ancestors experienced. I really haven't. It's been a lot of weird stuff and a lot of cuts and comments on my hair, on my nose, on my, it's like, there's just been a lot of it. But what I really believe is that the state of Israel was not created for Jews. And that's the thing people I wish would get out of their damn heads. It was created for the West. And, and they're just pushing it. Now, this stupid thing, anti-Semitism is the same as, I mean, Jews can't agree on Zionism. My God, who are these idiots passing this shit? And again, I think they don't have Jewish people in mind when they say that. It's really a way of dividing people, not letting people come to their own decisions. And anyway, I better be quiet because thank you so much. I've just not even said this much yet to anybody.
Thank you so much for sharing in this space, and I'm really glad that you felt like you could here, because it's really, really too much to process individually. So I'm grateful that we have this space to be in conversation together, and I hope that we can continue to be also, and that you continue to find spaces where you can express and process what you're really feeling and what you're really moving through around this. And also, find ways, or maybe we can talk more about ways to channel and direct that anger in ways where it's not festering, but where it's actually, supporting us and supporting our collective to move forward. But yeah, I see you and I honor you in your process with your family. Thank you.
I'll just say that it's good listening to poetry, listening to words, listening to our cultural activism allows us to think more critically about what we can do, what we can accomplish. And by word of mouth, we don't have to wait for a stage. We talk to each other, we share. So I just wanted to say that.
Yes. Thanks, Tureeda. Robert, did you want to share something?
Yes. Thank you, Tureeda. There we are. Thank you, Tureeda, for this, reminding us the word silence. Because most of what we're getting on the media is this, this rallying behind the good cause against terrorism. The film that Tashi put together, when would we ever see those voices on mainstream media in America? Never. Right. And so the silence, it's appalling that we can even say that we live in a democracy when the silence is so blatant. I mean, like casting this drug over the population, so we only see this red, white, and blue, and support Israel, the Zionists. And also that the thing brought up is how, when trying to equate Zionism with anti-Semitic, it's like a shield. It's like, don't hit me, hit these. If you're hitting me, you're hitting her. And that's what, when they accuse Hamas of hiding out in hospitals and using civilians as shields, isn't that what's silencing when you start gluing Zionism with anti-Semitic thing? It's the same kind of so-called shield so that we don't rally up against it.
Well, only some voices are allowed to be heard at this point, and that's what's happening. Yeah. it's totally unbalanced.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the other thing about that video is most of it was pulled from social media, because that's where a lot of the people's reporting is happening, and I think more and more of us are becoming aware of how unreliable these, you know, supposedly trusted news sources are very much, you know, aligned with this imperialist agenda. So really honoring those on the ground reporters, you know, like Bisan and so many others in Gaza who are bringing the truth to the world.
So, oh, just everyone is so silent. Please feel courageous enough to say something, because I know it's sitting there in all of us, and it would be really beneficial and healing for all of us to hear each other. So I encourage people to speak up.
And I think some people are in a trap of feeling just by law, you know, if they could pass a law like that. Some people feel trapped. Oh, I shouldn't, but you have to step forward, because that's, you know, we have to step forward.
Shilpa, did you want to say something, Shilpa? Or Robin?
Shilpa, why don't you say something?
Yeah, unmute. There we go.
Oh, there
yeah,
you go.
Right, for me, because I feel like I have it's just heartbreaking, first of all, and I'm just so glad that there's the safe space to talk about this. I'm also back on campus. I'm in school now, so I go into the Rutgers campus. So and it's like my any classroom I walk into has people from all over the world, and it's so it's hard not to be sitting next to somebody who's not affected by what's going on. And personally, it's I have a therapist who is I think she's like, you know, she told me she, like, her parents were Holocaust survivors, and they had ties, like, I think her parents were Zionists, and we don't talk about it because that's not a place we can venture into. But it's, and I'm also scared to bring it up because I want to know where she stands on this, and I want to be able to talk about this, but I can't. Because first of all, I feel like I don't have a right to talk about it because I'm South Asian. So I feel like I would be, if I spoke about it, I would come from a place of not understanding or not being sensitive to. So it's like, and that's the thing. So I just feel like I cannot talk about this, and that's the only, like, that's the predominant feeling. Like, it's like it's a bind everywhere, because I will get something wrong, and it would hurt people around me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I understand totally. It's so scary to speak up. That's the milieu that has been created for us in the country.
That's the spell that's been cast.
Yes.
So honor the spell. We say something, we're not being very American.
Right.
Yeah. Especially because I'm an immigrant and I'm not white, and I am honestly just very scared to bring it up. That's my predominant feeling. Even though I do want to say a lot of things, I do have a lot of questions to ask.
Well, here's a place you can do it.
Yes. Thank you for creating the space.
I would also say, like, you know, what you were saying about being South Asian and not having like a place in this, like, I don't know, you know, where exactly your people are from, but you absolutely do, like, because all of this is interconnected, and like I'm sure colonialism, you know, has touched wherever you're from. And so I just feel like that's part of the silencing of telling people that they don't understand enough or they don't have the right to speak on it. And it's like, you absolutely do. I mean, I hear that the repercussions and the consequences of that are very scary and may have real implications for you, and that's for each person to weigh for themselves, you know, what risks they're taking. But you know, your voice is incredibly important, and you have so much lived knowledge, experiential knowledge, and ancestral knowledge that people need to hear.
Thank you.
Leanne, did you want to share?
Yes, thank you. I'm reminded of the statement after World War II by the Lutheran pastor Niemöller. He said, when they came for the trade unionists, I did not speak up because I was not a trade unionist.
Yes.
And when they came for the communists, I did not speak up because I was not a communist. And it goes on, when they came for the Jews, I did not speak up because I am not a Jew. When they came for me, there was nobody left to speak. Yes. I am Jewish, and I have been accused of being a self-hating Jew when I have stood up for the rights of the Palestinian people. But I have to do that.
That's part of the spell. But Robert was saying, and I have in the book a poem called Politics Against the Talks. So yes, that's part of the spell. But thankful you keep moving forward.
You know, I just want to say there are things to do, you know, and just to move. I mean, thank you so much for this space. You know, Robert and Nancy and Tashi and all of you, and Tureeda for your poem. I'm in Brooklyn, where I live. I'm part of a group called Brooklyn Resistors, which have a lot of, to my shock and enjoyment, there are a lot of like rabbis and people who work in Jewish charities, and you know, everybody is so torn, but there are all these funds. You can send money to the Palestinians, you can send, you know, it's very even, you can send money to whoever. You know, hostages are coming back and have no money, you know, it's the Jewish hostages. And then there are these, I mean, I'm just speaking from the Jewish point of view. It's like, if not now, when is I mean, there's so many organizations, Jews for religious and economic, something, I don't remember, JFREG, basically, you know, Jewish Voices for Peace. And I'm just happy to remember that so many people in Israel are, you know, are anti this colonial push. And I'm grateful that the younger people younger than me who are Jewish, are really active against, they don't think of Zionism and Judaism as the same thing. And I'm really grateful because, Leanne, I know what you mean. I've been there. I am there. And I honor my friends who are Israeli, who are scared for their family. You know, so I honor that too, because they're out fighting. The kids are all out fighting. But there are things, and we have to talk and we have to take action. I feel a little young, I mean, old to be marching, but I don't know. I've marched before, so do I have to do it again? I guess so.
Our hips and knees might not allow us to
I
do
know.
I do also have some resources and action-oriented steps that I want to share at some point before we close out. But I also want to thank you, Robin, for sharing all of that. And I want to make space for anyone else who felt called to speak before we move on to those resources.
I just want to mention one more thing about the poem, because when I mentioned God, and when people mention God, they think that there is just one God, and there are many. But then in Robert's portrait of this story, the chakra God, and we have these chakras in our system that relate to functions. So we using the word God for me was looking at what kind of God are we addressing? Is there just one God? And Trevor Noah, a comedian, and I think we really need comedy sometimes, a little bit. And it was good to see that in the opening story. But at the same time, to bring out a truth, as he did when he said, the man asked, what's the name of your God? Who is your God? What does your God represent? Because the whole Palestinian-Israel thing, the Zionist thing, is based upon scripture. It's based upon an idea that God gave this land. So it's a 2,000-year-old story. So what are you looking at, really? What are you evaluating? What are you, basing a reality on? So, and then that's why I don't mention any names per se, but I do mention the action, the idea, what's happening to us all at one point or another in time. And thanks again, Nancy, for opening this up and allowing this to happen. And Eth-Noh-Tec, Robert, thank you. And yeah.
Thanks, Tureeda. Lori.
I actually listened to a Zoom session with Dennis Ross this afternoon. He's been a mediator with the whole Middle Eastern question for many years, and he's somewhat hopeful that this has been so horrendous for both sides that maybe it will shake things up and actually open the door to developing a two-state solution. Because I think there has to be an underlying resolution to the whole thing. And we've come close, and then someone, steps in because they don't want it to happen for whatever reason. So maybe this time people will come together. Somewhat hopeful. I thought you'd want to end on a hopeful note, so here I provided that.
Oh, definitely.
Thank you. Jan,
Jan,
go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I mostly, in a way, just wanted to be a voice for the people who are not speaking up. I came here primarily to listen and to learn, and because I'm very full of the pain and compassion. So I just wanted to say that, and I know that there are other people here also who are so appreciative of hearing the many people who have talked. I thank you for that. And I guess just the one other thing, the inspiring side, is there is a school in Israel that maybe some of you know about that is called Hand in Hand, and they have been around for a long time, and they teach both Arab and Jewish Israeli students, and they learn each of their languages and they learn how to listen to each other. And just knowing that there are things like that that don't get a lot of publicity, but they're happening. Thank you.
Yep, definitely there are many people who are trying to build those bridges to each other so that this kind of thing isn't going to be something that you end up growing up with, which I think Israelis have been taught from the very beginning to be very protective of their land, protective of their bodies, and to do it by any means possible, which it ends up being not so good for the Palestinians. So definitely, though, there are people doing bridge building.
If all of you out there, if you know of individuals or organizations, like you mentioned, Jan, Hand to Hand, and I know Rob and you have also some resource, just chat them and put them in the chat, and we're recording this so we can go back and maybe send a message out to people who attend and who didn't make it. Here's other ways to reach out.
Sure.
Thank you.
Something to do.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your voices. Really appreciate this conversation. I just want to close out by sharing some action steps beyond just protesting, because that's not for everyone. There is a call to boycott various companies that are basically, immensely profiting off of and supporting the violent occupation. And some of these corporations are included here in this image. McDonald's, Burger King, Domino's, Papa John's, Pizza Hut. I know Starbucks is also in there. There's also a call to boycott Chevron. So there's that choice that we make as consumers to make change with our money and where we invest our money, knowing that that is the primary language that these governments speak. There is the action item of calling our senators and representatives and demanding their support of a ceasefire. And there is a really great app for anyone who's an iPhone user called 5 Calls that makes it extremely easy to call every single day, call your reps. It takes, just a couple of minutes. So I really recommend folks to download that. And I put also another link in the chat for those who can't use this app. There's another website that I put in the chat that can help you make calls to your reps. We're being encouraged to call every single day and sort of flood the lines, flood the voice, the voicemail, because they do take tally of how many calls they're getting on a given issue every single day. So it actually really does make an impact. Supporting Palestinian organizations. I also put a few of those in the chat, such as Palestinian Youth Movement and what's it called? AROC, Arab Organizing in the Bay Area. Those are a few in the Bay Area. I don't know where everyone's based, but there's a few organizations in the chat that I would encourage folks to support. Showing up to protests and disruptive actions as a way to really let our governments know that we are deeply upset and taking deep responsibility for what's happening, and that we won't let them rest until they call for a ceasefire and make major changes to their support for the Israeli occupation. That's a really, powerful way to show up. And then also we've been really encouraged by folks in Gaza to keep posting on social media and keep this issue at the forefront of people's attention, because, people have short attention span. They just want us to forget that this is happening and disassociate. So, the more that we can continue to bring people's attention to this and let people know that it's not okay to forget that this is happening, just because we may be experiencing relative comfort within our lives, that's being great. That's a really big ask on behalf of the Palestinian people as well. As well as Israelis, who are calling for a ceasefire, who are calling for an end to the occupation, and who have been impacted by, the hostages that were taken and the violence that happened on the part of Hamas as well. So calling for this ceasefire is really supporting everyone in the region, just to reiterate that. So I think it's a good idea, Robert, for us to send out a follow-up email, and I can send out these resources and send out, that list of organizations to all the folks that are here tonight, so that we can all, stay engaged moving forward. And then lastly, let's see. Lastly, just want to invite anyone who's feeling moved to support Eth-No-Tec, so that we can continue, creating this kind of programming and creating these kinds of safe spaces for the community to, process what's going on in our world. If anyone feels called to donate, we will obviously very graciously accept and receive that, so that we can continue to build community and create cultural bridges, and support our community in feeling less alone in these really challenging times. I think Brittany Brittany put the link for donations in the chat. And yeah, I just want to thank everyone so much for your presence tonight. Thank you, Robert, for sharing your story. Thank you, Tureeda, for sharing your powerful poem and also helping me facilitate, low-key, the conversation, and just for your wisdom and your truth-telling, and really excited for your book that's coming out in February. I don't know if I think Brittany put the links in the chat to follow Tureeda's work. So we're so grateful to have you here.
And thank you.
Robert,
Thank you.
yeah.
You've been doing a great job. Great job.
Thank you. Robert and Nancy, did you
Yes,
want to
we want to thank you, Tashi, and Brittany and Craig, who was also behind the scenes making sure that everything went smoothly. We want to thank everyone for coming. And I know it was difficult, but we felt really that it was so important to do this right now. And, it's not something that can be done once either. It needs to be ongoing. We all need to be able to come together in some way to keep talking about this, keep healing ourselves, because it's so hard for all of us, especially so far away from being able to have the power to do anything, even with our own government. And I know Israelis feel that way about their own government. It's not an easy time. I mean, look at the Ukrainian-Russian war. It's totally forgotten, this one, but it's still happening. There's still this going on in our world, and it is not okay for those of us who really value life and peace.
Like no other time in our history, we're able to talk like this. And here, Nancy and I were in Indonesia, and there's community here. Wherever you are, whether it be in New York or Brooklyn, right? We're all connected. We're driving out into the countryside here in Indonesia, and we're seeing the Indonesian people putting up flags for Palestine, Palestinian flags. So the people are connected. We're connecting.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Global solidarity, for sure.
Yes, absolutely. And Robert, you said you wanted to say, you had your hand up to say something. You want to do that now or not? Robin,
you got something?
Yes.
I think I said it already.
Okay.
I mean, I can always talk, but hey.
And it's great to hear you always, Robin.
I think one thing I would like to sort of go out on is it's scary as a Jewish person to hear how everybody is equating Judaism and Israel. I mean, I mean, I was born after the Holocaust, but I know that I was brought up with memories of other
Yes.
people, and it's scary. It's necessary, but scary.
Yes, I think all of us need to just really stay grounded.
Yeah.
And to stay informed, balanced information, and not let it weigh us down so much that we become depressed and incapable of being a voice for peace.
Mm.
You know, we really can't let that happen to us.
Yeah. Right. Comedy is so necessary. Yes.
Yes, that's true. I could share some comedians who have been making good work around this also in the follow-up email that people might appreciate. Jerry wanted to share a comment.
Good.
Jerry, you're welcome to speak.
Where are you, Jerry?
I'm in Santa Cruz, California.
Hi, Jerry.
Good to see you. Good to see you both. This is a difficult time. It's a difficult time every place. I don't know there are very many places in the world where you don't have to fend off all the awful things that are going on. And so I'm Jewish. I find the bombardment of Gaza horrifying, absolutely horrifying. But I don't know where to stand, because every time I get a place where I think I can stand, I realize I have to back up and see it in a larger context. And then I get in that place and I have to back up farther. I think about, in historic terms, there were huge populations of the Jewish community in Baghdad and in Damascus and all of North America. And they do not exist anymore. The people were driven out the same as the Palestinians were driven out. Their properties were taken, their lives were lost, their livelihoods were lost, their cultural context was lost. So I back up to say, well, how do I stand further back than that? And then I think, well, why don't I just move in really close? And it is very easy to say, have a ceasefire, stop the bombardment. That is not going to get us any place. Regime change did not happen well in any of the countries of North Africa with the Arab Spring. It has not happened in any of these places. It didn't happen in Afghanistan. So regime change, which is what Netanyahu and his right-wing government really want, which is to kill Hamas, that's not a solution either. So then I try to figure out, where do I stand when I see those things? And then I say, well, what are the human rights records within those countries? Well, there are no Jews in any of those Arab countries. 25% of Israel's population is Islamic, is Arab. So they have that going. Well, I say, well, that's a good thing. And then they say, what countries is a woman's right to choose respected? And Israel is sort of the only place. And that has constraints too, because Israel has a right wing, just like the United States has a right wing. So I look at that. I'm not sure that gay and lesbian marriage is permitted in any of the countries except Israel. And so I don't know where to stand within all of this. It is really easy and fundamental to say I'm against the bombardment. That is easy. But then I don't know where to go after that. And then I get kind of stunned into silence, and I get stunned in immobility, because I don't know where to stand to see where everyone's narrative is somehow respected and everyone's individual rights are respected. And then I just shut down.
Yeah, it's so important not to make it black and white, either or, and exactly where you're stuck. And I think the rest of us too, because it's not like all Israelis are this way, all Palestinians are terrorists, all, it's like how to see all human beings as multidimensional, all countries and religions as multidimensional, and not just one color, one sound. And that's hard, because we are so prone in our minds to make it simple for our minds to understand. Our minds will do that. They'll make judgments, and they'll make conclusions, and the easiest thing is to pigeonhole.
Yes.
And we have to fight our own minds.
And if we're hoping that people in the Mideast can come to some kind of peace, and it's in their faces and in their world, how is it that we in the United States have to take such polarized views that we cannot even talk? If we can't talk, how can we expect them to be able to talk? And I have to say that I was raised, my parents lost 23 people in the Holocaust. Their immediate families were murdered. I was raised a quarter of a mile from the American Nazi headquarters. And in my 7-Eleven as a child, there were men wearing American Nazi uniforms. And so I grew up very much in that shadow, you know. And then I see people saying, well, it's the Israelis are right or the Palestinians are right. And the truth is, there's plenty of blame to go around. And when we take one side, then we marginalize other people. And that's not going to get us any place. And it's hard to lay down all the trauma so that we don't respond from our traumas.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's difficult, very difficult, but we have to keep going. We have to keep healing. I mean, it's about healing so that you don't come from trauma.
Right. And that's
hard. Oof. Yeah.
Ask anybody who's been traumatized, which is like all of us. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Robert. It's been a long time.
Keeping up the good work with peace and hearts and children and families, you know.
Yeah.
Thank you. For all of you. You know, I know many of you, some of you are artists, some of you are writers. You're all peacekeepers and peacemakers out there. You know, that's the one thing that we can embrace is keep opening up that kind of energy into the world, because it's multidimensional, and the solution in the Middle East has to have a multi-dimensional approach to it, not just right and wrong, left and right, black and white. I think the powers that be want this sort of psychological apartheid in our mind. So there's us and them, and that's what's caused this wholeness to begin with.
Right, because children are watching. The children are watching.
They're learning.
To work with children because they are watching. Yeah.
Thank you everyone so much, and it feels like we need to have more of these conversations, so maybe that's something we can talk about as Eth-Noh-Tec so that we can continue deepening, because this is really just scratching the surface. Clearly there's so much to get into, and like Jerry said, like if we, you know, can't find a way to even be in this conversation as a small group of somewhat like-minded people, then what hope is there for beyond? So I think it'd be really beautiful to get to continue to connect around this, and we'll definitely be following up with some resources and you know, some action items, and yeah, just really appreciate everyone showing up in a heartful way tonight.
So is there anyone else who wants to say something before we close out?
I've got to say one thing, of course. That little 2-year-old head you see running around there, that's our hope for the future. That's our grandson, Shuji.
That's
and
right.
Mama Shani, our daughter, just so thankful for you, you know, laying the path for the next generation. And for she's been very active with all this issue going on in Gaza with the Palestinians. And so thank you, Shani, even though you're shy and hiding out in the kitchen. We know you're there listening. Thank you for the hope for the future. There he goes. Oh, here he comes. There's Shuji. Hey, Shuji.
All right, take care, everyone.
Take care.
Take care of yourself.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you
all
for
of,
everything.
all of you. Thank you so much.
All right.
Keep holding the light. Peace to all of you.
Always, always.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Tureeda.
Bye-bye. And Jerry and Shilpa and Betty Jung and Gail
many of you.
and all of you. Eleanor,
And
thank
Kristen.
you. Bye-bye. And Kristen. Bye, everyone.
And
Christine.
daughter Shawnee.
Yeah, there's our daughter. Yeah. All right, Shilpa.